Sexual offense laws can be incredibly complex, right? Full of legal jargon. So in this explainer, we're going to cut right through all of that. We're going to show you exactly how these laws work section by section. We'll look at how a crime is defined, what the consequences are, and how the system is actually designed to protect victims.
So we've broken this down into 5 parts. First, we'll get into the legal definition of rape. Then we'll move on to punishments, look at other related crimes, and wrap up with the really crucial safeguards that are in place to protect victims through the whole legal process.
Okay, let's start at the very beginning, the foundation of it all. What is the legal definition of rape? To really get this, we need to zoom in on one key piece of the law, Section 63.
So Section 63 is super clear about this. For an act to be legally called rape, 2 things have to be true. First, a specific physical act has to happen. And second, it has to happen under a specific set of circumstances. It's this combination of the what and the how that really makes up the legal definition. Let's break both of those down.
The first part is the physical act itself, and Section 63 outlines 4 very specific kinds of penetration. You'll notice the law is intentionally broad here. It covers penetration with the penis, sure, but also with any object or body part, manipulation that causes penetration, or even application of the mouth. This is all designed to cover a whole range of violations.
But here's the thing, the physical act alone doesn't make it a crime. The second, and honestly the most critical part, is the context. And in the eyes of the law, that context is all about one thing. Was there valid legal consent, or was there not?
So, what makes consent invalid? Well, Section 63 gives us a list of 7 specific circumstances. Some are pretty straightforward, like if force or threats were used. But it also covers more complex situations. For example, if consent was given because of mistaken identity, or if a person was so intoxicated they couldn't understand what was happening. And this is a huge one. If the victim is under 18, the law says they are legally unable to consent, period.
And this brings us right to the definition of consent itself, also tucked into Section 63. The standard is an unequivocal, voluntary agreement. Let's just think about those words for a second. Unequivocal means it has to be totally clear, no ambiguity. Voluntary means it can't be forced or pressured. The law makes it incredibly plain that just being silent or not fighting back is not consent. It has to be an active, willing yes to that specific act.
All right, so that's the crime defined under Section 63. Now, what about the consequences? Let's turn to Section 64, which lays out the standard punishments for anyone convicted of rape.
For a conviction under that general definition we just talked about, Section 64 sets a pretty serious mandatory minimum. The sentence starts at 10 years of rigorous imprisonment, which means hard labor, and it can go all the way up to a life sentence, plus a fine.
But Section 64 goes even deeper. It lists several aggravating circumstances that can lead to even tougher penalties. The big theme here is abuse of power or trust. So if the offender is a police officer, a public servant, or someone in a position of trust like a guardian or a doctor, the law sees that as a much more serious crime because, it's a profound betrayal. Same thing if the victim is especially vulnerable. In these situations, the punishment can be ramped up to life in prison.
Okay, moving on. The law also singles out certain offenses as being exceptionally severe. These are covered in Sections 65, 66, and 70, and believe me, they carry the most serious punishments you can get.
This table here really lays out how the penalties just escalate dramatically. Let's walk through it so these section numbers stick. Section 65 is all about the victim's age. If the victim is under 16, the minimum sentence jumps to 20 years to life. And if she's under 12, the death penalty is even a possibility. Then you have Section 70 for gang rape. That also carries a minimum of 20 years to life. And finally, Section 66. This one deals with the absolute gravest outcomes. If the assault causes the victim's death or leaves them at a persistent vegetative state, the death penalty is again on the table.
And to top off this section on severe cases, we have Section 71. This is aimed squarely at repeat offenders. If someone has already been convicted under one of those severe sections, 65, 66, or 70, and then they do it again, the law is just, unequivocal. The only possible sentences are imprisonment for their entire natural life or death.
So, the law also deals with acts that don't quite fit the specific definition of rape, but are still considered very serious sexual offenses. You'll find these in Sections 67, 68, and 69.
Now, the distinction here is really important. These are not legally classified as rape, but they're still serious crimes all about exploitation. Section 68, on one side, is about abusing authority. So when someone in a position of trust uses that power to get sexual intercourse. Then on the other side, Section 69 is about deceit, using lies, like a fake promise of marriage, to get the same result. Both of these can land you in prison for a long time.
And then we have Section 67. This carves out a very specific situation, non-consensual intercourse within a marriage, but only when the couple is living apart because of a legal separation. So even if you're married, if there's the legal separation in place, consent is still required. Without it, it's a crime, and it's punishable by 2 to 7 years in prison.
Lastly, and this is so important, the law isn't just about crime and punishment. It also has these vital rules to protect the victim during the whole process. So let's look at 2 key safeguards you'll find in Sections 72 and 73.
Section 72 creates this really powerful shield for victims: anonymity. It basically makes it a crime for anyone to print or publish information that could identify a victim of one of these offenses. And the whole point is to protect them from the trauma of being publicly exposed and from any social stigma.
But this anonymity isn't unbreakable. Section 72 does outline 3 very narrow, very strictly controlled exceptions. A victim's identity can only be revealed if a police officer orders it in writing for an investigation or with written permission from the victim herself. If the victim can't give consent, maybe they're a minor or have passed away, their next of kin can authorize it. The main thing to take away here is that control over their identity stays with the victim or the official legal process.
And the protection goes one step further with Section 73. This makes it a whole separate crime to publish any details about the court proceedings in these cases without getting the court's permission first. It's a safeguard that's there to protect the integrity of the trial and the privacy of everyone involved.
So there you have it. It's like a map of the entire legal architecture. We've seen how Section 63 carefully defines the crime. We've tracked the punishments as they get more and more severe through Sections 64, 65, and 70. And we've seen how Sections 72 and 73 act as a shield to protect victims from more harm. Understanding all this isn't just a legal exercise. It really makes you think, doesn't it? It makes you confront how we as a society define consent, how we assign responsibility, and how we ultimately try to deliver justice.